Welcome to the Marlene Saunders Show, where we have real talk, real conversations, and you're welcome to it. If it's your first time here, subscribe to this channel, become a part of the chat family, and welcome to the Blah 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 podcast. I thank you all so much for tuning in today. Thank you so much for your support. Today on the podcast, I wanted to talk about verbal abuse, verbally abusive relationships. It's very important to talk about, and for anyone who has ever been through something like this, trigger warning. I always like to start it off with that, trigger warning. Um, Not everybody really can handle to hear about it when you go through it, but it's still important to talk about. So, a verbally abusive relationship is also known as emotional abuse because there's a range of words, just touching all kinds of things here. Sorry about that. Um, there's a range of words and behaviors that are used to manipulate and intimidate, and all of this usually is done to maintain power and control over someone. Most of the time, the ones that are verbally abusive have a lot of issues. They have some mental illness, they have some controlling problems. They probably were also verbally abused growing up. There's a lot of things that go with that. But also, some of the things that go with verbal abuse is someone who always insults you, humiliates. And ridicules you for the things that you do. A lot of the time, it's attempts to scare you, to isolate you from other people. One of the things about someone who's verbally abusive, they're always very controlling. They control everything that you do, what you eat, what you look like, who you talk to, who you're friends with, how much money you make, what are you talking about, everything. They control everything that you do if you allow it. Conversations like this I find to be very empowering. If you have ever been through situations like this where you have been verbally abused, after a while you start to become numb to it. You start to accept it, believe it as true. You start thinking less of yourself. You actually will have no self esteem. You feel very insignificant, very tiny. You feel like a nobody. And you just stay silent because, when you get beat up all the time, when you get beat up with your self esteem, when someone always puts you down and makes you feel inferior and foolish, or somebody always tells you that you're stupid, there comes a period of time that you start to believe it. It's not really that you want to believe it, but you do believe it because you've been in that situation for so long. And especially in certain relationships like the ones that you're born into. Um, the the verbal abuse when it comes from your parents is a really toxic and tragic thing that can happen to us. It's very traumatic, it's very painful. And when when we get verbally abused when we're young, it takes us through all of our relationships in the future. If you don't work on, getting to the bottom of that pain that your parents taught you, because we don't really know that when we're younger, but the way that you get treated when you're younger is how you believe you should be treated when you get to be older. It affects how you deal with friendships, um, in school, friends, romantic interests, in the workplace. That verbal abuse that you get, if it started in your childhood, if you begin to think that it's normal, or you become so desensitized to it, you start to become verbally abusive. So it's another cycle of verbal abuse that happens. And if we don't get some help, talk to somebody, talk to a therapist, and realize that what happened to us as children, we're going to think that it's okay. And you'll start to do that to others. I've seen it a lot in social work, in the healthcare field, here on social media. So many people are so angry. They're always ready to go from 0 to 10. And it's not even something that's a big deal. I've always said some people who lose their cool so easily that it has to be more than just whatever that small issue is. There has to be some underlying issues. There has to be something that's going on, some traumas that they have not dealt with, some things that they have not let go and forgiven. And until you do that, you're always going to be angry. Um, so, according to, the definition of what a, a legal aspect defines as verbal abuse is also defined as emotional abuse, but it's anytime a person uses their words to ridicule, dominate, manipulate, or degrade you. You are experiencing verbal abuse. And I think that it's something very important to look at, to ask ourselves, am I verbally abusive? We cannot think that we're being verbally abusive, but if we don't check things from our childhood, you may become verbally abusive, and you just may say, oh, this is the way I talk. You shouldn't be yelling. You should not be berating others. You should not diminish other people's character, especially people who have done nothing to you. Now, here are some of the signs of some emotional abuse, and they are gaslighting, isolating you from loved ones, insulting language, yelling, shifting the blame, extreme jealousy, and unpredictable anger. Mm. Now, I think that just about everybody has been verbally abused at some period of time by somebody in their life, but it's very tragic, it's very painful, and it causes a lot of issues if you don't you know, talk to somebody about it. If you don't talk to a therapist, a friend, and check that. You have to check and give stop giving power to what happened to you. Everything that happens to us in our life, we have the power to shift and change anything. Not that we can change what happened to us, but you can change the way you view it. You can change the way you look at the situation, and you go from being a victim to being victorious. That's very important. It changes your life when you stop becoming a victim, when you take your power back, when you empower yourself, when you can talk about things, when you're not hiding things, when you're not giving into the scare tactics. Yeah, that's when you definitely get your power back. Now, another form of a abusive relationship, it can happen with siblings. Not everybody has that healthy brothers and sisters loving environment. Like I mentioned earlier, some people have some mental illness, they have some issues, they have been through some things, and a lot of people do not have coping tools. They don't have coping skills. They don't know how to deal with anything that they have been through in their life. And it's really important for those who don't know how to control their anger. They don't know how to deal with things that happen to them. Um, Automatically, they take it out on the ones that are closest to them. And unfortunately, the ones that are closest to us, it could be your sibling. The relationship with brothers and sisters, it can be a beautiful thing and it can be a tragic thing if it's not checked. And the issue is, it could, the way your siblings are treating you can also be stemming from the way your parents treated you and how their parents treated them. And until someone stops that cycle of the anger, the, you know, holding everything inside, not wanting to talk about it. And I do understand. I do understand the reason why, the cycles, and there's many generations of, siblings that don't get along, parents that don't get along, grandparents that don't get along. I understand why it happens on a regular basis, is because nobody wants to identify and talk about all the painful situations, all the trauma, all the drama, all of the manipulation and the hurt that was involved, the yelling, and, unfortunately, sometimes that verbal abuse goes to physical abuse. Find it to be so hard to talk about when your siblings, when your parents, when somebody that you love treats you in an inferior way, when someone treats you like you're nobody and you're not. Another one that is hard is, growing up. And I always say that people are not your family just because you're born into it. A family is who you make it. Is a family is those that love you unconditionally, that support you, that encourage you, that build your confidence. All of those things help you to perform and be a better person. That's what family is to me. But, getting back to talking about relatives, we were talking about parents and siblings and also other relatives. They can have a lot of issues. Your aunts, uncles, cousins, um, grandparents, aunts and uncles, there can be lots of issues with them. And because they may not have resolved issues from childhood, their teen years, their adulthood, their relationships, they keep all of that inside and they start taking it out on whoever they're with. And if you don't resolve your issues from your pain, your trauma, your difficulty, your drama, your stress, you're going to take it out on other people. And I've seen aunts and uncles just do some of the worst, hurtful, most painful things to their nieces and nephews. how cousins treat one another. And it's awful to be in a situation where this is your home environment. This is where you're supposed to be getting the most love, and it could be the place where you're getting the most hate. You feel the most sad, the most unloved, when it should be quite the opposite. So, relatives who have these issues, unfortunately, sometimes the parents are not well mentally themselves. There's a lot of brokenness, generational brokenness, you know, not wanting to talk about things. And also, sometimes the reason why people can't talk about things is because they never grew up in that environment. Especially back in the day, you just didn't do those things. Whatever happened to you, you kept that inside. You didn't talk about it. You held that in. You lied about it. You always had to pretend you were okay even when you weren't. And that causes more issues. Most of the time, we feel that holding in our pain, holding in the trauma, holding in how we feel because we weren't allowed um, to voice it, to communicate, to share how we were feeling, to talk about the mental health issues, the emotional pain that was caused by these individuals in our relatives. Then another cycle that doesn't want to talk about it, because when you grow up, being stifled, you get used to holding that inside because that becomes a norm. And just because you've been doing something for a long time, it does not make it okay. Toxic, painful, being used, the drama, the foolishness, the berating, the lies, the making you feel like you're dirt on the ground, that's not okay. And we get used to that sometimes. We get used to being treated like we're less because we're told that we're less. We're told that we're less by relatives. You're told that you're less by your parents, your siblings. And then some people believe it. They believe it, and then they tell it to their children because that's what they were told too. You're nobody. You're nothing. You can't do anything. You're stupid. You're ugly. Nobody will like you. And those things cause other issues too. When you go through things and if you don't heal that pain, you're going to give that pain to somebody else. And it may not be your children. You may give that pain to your romantic interest. You may give that pain to the workplace, but you're going to give that pain because the pain has to go somewhere. So you're going to take it out on somebody, whether you want to or not, if you don't seek help. I can never say that enough. Seek help if you have ever been through any sort of abusive relationship. Seek help. Everybody needs help. There's nothing wrong with talking about it. And especially I say to my male listeners, don't think you got to be macho and hold everything inside. I get it that you can't share how you feel with everybody, and the same thing goes with the ladies. You can't share everything that you have been through with everybody because it has to be with somebody who's going to listen to you, someone who's going to understand you, someone who will be compassionate and supportive. So of course, no, don't share with everybody, but you do have to share it with someone because you got to get it off your chest. You got to get it off your heart and you have to heal. And if you don't heal, if you don't heal from what you have dealt with, what you're going through, you're going to cause another generation to do the same. They're going to feel that it's okay. They're going to feel that it's all right and it's not. Um so, you know, There are usually three main warning signs that someone may be an abuser. Some of those red flags and warning signs of an abuser include, but they're not limited to, extreme jealousy, possessiveness, and unpredictability. Like no matter what it is that you say, they don't believe you. They always feel that you're doing something. And I never have understood the relationship of parents being jealous of their children, but I think what it is that the parent gets jealous of a child, especially a child who has a carefree spirit, or they have they're good looking, or they excel intellectually, and they don't possess those things. So I think ultimately that's usually the main issue. They have not worked on themselves and fixed themselves, so they still you stay at the age of your abuse. So if your abuse started when you were very young, you mentally and you emotionally stay stuck in that age, and that's not good. You're going to cause a lot of pain. Okay. And this is another one, in talking about verbal abuse, there is another form of abuse too, is the silent treatment. Silent treatment, of course, we know that's when someone ignores you, they don't want to talk to you, and it makes you feel so terrible when someone ignores you. It's like they're there and they don't want to talk to you. They stay in their room. It's a mind game thing, it's a tactic, and you don't have to deal with it. It's something that I endured for my childhood. I dealt with it with my siblings, and I go back to it sometimes because that's the way that I was raised. But I try to catch myself on that. When I feel upset, I automatically go to I don't want to talk about it, and I have to shift that and change it and say, "Yes, you do need to talk about it, but talk about it after you calm down, when you have your head together, because we don't want to just blurt out and just say anything, because when you say things in anger, you can't take those things back." And another place where there's a lot of verbal abuse is in the workplace. Oh boy, could I write a book on the verbal abuse that is in the workplace? There are some people who are in management, in uh, positions of um, of power, and they don't need to be in those positions because they don't know how to be a manager. They don't know how to be a leader. They have no leadership skills, and they just basically want to dominate you. They're micromanagers. They're users. They want you to do whatever they want. They're very possessive. They're controlling, and all of those things. So that's very, if you're in ever in that environment, you have to try your best to get out of that environment. Find another job. It's just not worth it to let somebody treat you like garbage. And I don't understand what's people's problem, but these days we have rights. Back in the day that there was not a lot of rights. There's workplace ethics and rules and standards, and yeah, there's lawsuits that can happen. Every boss has a boss. So don't think that I can't talk you can't talk about it, and you will feel uncomfortable. You will feel strange, but you should never allow, especially on the job, the yelling, the mind games, the screaming, the micromanagement, all of that. Don't put up with it, because it will only get worse. And you deserve way better. And this is my last part of this podcast today. There's a lot of verbal abuse when it comes to those that you are in a romantic relationship with, your romantic interest, whether it be someone you're dating, someone you're living with. someone you're married to, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever your romantic interest. And we tend to think that when you come from that toxic environment of, if you grew up in that yelling, the arguing, you just say, oh, we're having disagreements. But nobody should be yelling at you, screaming at you, putting you down, making you feel like you're 2 cents. No, 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 no. And you have to get away from people who are like that, especially a romantic interest. If somebody feels okay with yelling and screaming at you, making you feel like you're nobody, telling you that you're stupid, you're ugly, nobody wants you, you don't do anything right, you don't deserve that. And what I hear all the time, oh, I'm sorry. They always make excuses, and they say sorry. And I don't ever get why they say, if it wasn't for you, they will blame you because they don't know how to control their anger, or they've had a bad day. It's transfer of energy. But don't let people transfer their energy onto you and make you feel like you're 2 cents. You deserve way better than that. And I know people every day that stay in verbally abusive relationships, even more than that, also physically abusive. But I always say that it starts in the mind, because people like to break you in your mind first to get you to feel less than, to feel stupid, so that you will be so broken that you will never walk away from them. So, to all of you, chat family, if there's anybody in your life that whether it be your parents, your siblings, your relative, in the workplace, your romantic interest, your children, nobody has the right to scream and yell at you, make you feel stupid, make fun of you, embarrass you in front of other people, or constantly play mind games with you, make you feel inferior, or always talk about you in front of other people. Nobody has that right to treat you that way, but you are the ones that have to take your power back, and you don't have to take it. You deserve way better, chat family. Whoever this message is for, receive it. You deserve better. And sometimes when we go through verbally abusive relationships, with from our childhood to romantic relationship, with siblings, in the workplace, we feel that we have no other choice, or we have to deal with it. And I have to have this job, and I have to stay in this relationship because I'm not working, or nobody else will want me. Don't do that. There's always better for you when you choose it. And yeah, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be uncomfortable. And you're going to shed some tears, and you're going to feel sad and upset and angry, but don't keep that inside. Talk about it. Silence is not the answer, chat family. Silence is not the answer. When we talk about it, when we have conversations, and when we dignify ourselves, respect ourselves, that's how we grow. That's how we show we love ourselves. That's how we respect our own self. And we also put boundaries on other people. Don't let other people treat you like you're less than when you're not. Know your worth, everybody. Know your worth. Thank you so much for tuning into today's podcast. I will see you all tomorrow on the next blah, blah, blah podcast. And if you have not hit the like, subscribed, or shared this out, please do so. And leave me a comment in the comment section below. I'll see you all tomorrow.